Welcome to Understanding Wealth, Part 11, Day 11. I'm delighted to be here with you as always. My name is Mensah, and I want to welcome you if you're joining for the first time. I want to welcome you if you're joining again, if you've been part of the series. I want to welcome you. Yesterday we started the second section of the Wealth series. This journey began 11 days ago. I started day one by explaining and sharing some of my personal beliefs and personal philosophies about wealth. Now, when we hear the word wealth, obviously, as you would imagine, we have different pictures that come to mind. For some, it's simply money. It's the beautiful houses, it's the beautiful homes, it's the financial statement with so many assets, or perhaps it's the bank account containing so much money. And so we have a picture that comes to our mind when we hear the word wealth. But wealth in itself is much more than that, it's much broader than that. There's nothing wrong in thinking about wealth in relation to monetary value. And if that's what you had in mind, you're not incorrect, but your assumption is simply incomplete. And I started day one by saying that wealth has to be seen as an equation. There are parts of the equation that guarantee the outcome. For example, if you altered parts of the equation, then automatically you alter the outcome, you alter the results. And wealth has to be viewed in terms of its holistic value. The equation of wealth I referred to was spiritual wealth, combined with mental wealth, combined with physical wealth, gives you the complete equation. In other words, material wealth is an expression of wealth physically. You've heard someone say health is wealth, and that is simply true. It's a manifestation in the physical form in one particular path, but also material wealth is another way of doing it. So for those of you joining, for the first 9 sessions, which is part or section 1, I focused on showing you how to achieve financial wealth, how to achieve financial freedom, and how to achieve your financial dreams. All of those sessions covered the lowest level of wealth. Now, in the hierarchy of wealth, I mentioned that wealth comes in 3 levels: physical, spiritual, and mental, with the physical being the lowest and the spiritual being the highest. And you and I have a responsibility to make sure that we, in every area, we try to cover the 3 aspects of wealth to make sure that we have a fully balanced, wealthy life. Yesterday we started the mental level of wealth, and I started yesterday by sharing some of my views about the mind. As a matter of fact, I said everything you have materially in physical form, the manifestation begins as an idea, as a thought. So whatever you have around you right now, whatever you're watching this video on, if it's a mobile phone, if it's an electronic device, whatever that might be, what you're looking at is a tangible form of an idea. Money is an idea. And I said yesterday that if you want to be wealthy and if you want to keep a consistent level of wealth in relation to health or material wealth, then you've got to understand how the mind functions. And if you understand how the mind functions, then you know how to create wealth. So for the first 9 sessions, we were dealing with what I would call effects, not causes. And yesterday we began the journey of dealing with the causes. And one of the major causes of what we have in life and the experience we will have in this journey called life begins in the mind. The wise man and the wise king, I should say, and also regarded as the wealthiest person who ever lived, was King Solomon. Now, to put into context how wealthy King Solomon King Solomon was. Now, he's known to have built a temple, and the temple was so beautiful that there's never been anything like that ever created. Now, I don't know where you're watching from, I don't know what your beliefs are. If you've been part of the journey so far, then you will realize that I don't try to focus too much on religion or philosophy. I'm more concerned about results. So, whatever your beliefs might be, whether you believe there was a Solomon or you don't, I don't really care, I don't really mind. What we do know, however, is this, that is, according to recorded history, he's considered to have been the wealthiest person who ever lived. To put into context, as of yesterday, Jeff Bezos of Amazon was the wealthiest man in the world. For the first time, he had gone past Bill Gates. Now, I don't know how long he's going to stay there. As I understand, it had to do with some stock shares in his corporation. So for the first time yesterday, we had Jeff Bezos as the wealthiest person in the world. It would be a lot easier for you and me to achieve Jeff Bezos' level of wealth. Now, he's worth about 91 billion. It will be a lot easier for me and you to achieve and get to Jeff Bezos' level of wealth than it would be for Jeff Bezos to get to Solomon's level of wealth. That's how wealthy Solomon was. And Solomon said something that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. In other words, whatever you can conceive in your mind, if you believe it, if you're willing to work hard towards it, if you focus, if you pay the price, you can achieve it. And so we started yesterday talking about wealth and how the mind helps you achieve whatever you want. In today's session, I'm going to take it a little bit further. I'm going to talk about an aspect of wealth, but more important, an aspect of you that I guarantee can change the outcomes of your life. It will be different. Today will be different. For some of you, maybe it's not your cup of tea. Now, I haven't come here looking for followers. I'm not looking for disciples. I'm here for the believers. Now, if one person finds something of value and is able to use that to achieve their financial dreams, more importantly, to achieve a level of abundance and prosperity in all areas of their lives, then I consider today's session to have been time well spent. I'm going to be talking about self-image. And I consider self-image to be so important that I think, in my opinion, I believe that it should be taught in schools. For the simple reason being that we all cannot outperform our self-image. If you want to create wealth on the material level, if you want to achieve wealth on the physical level in terms of health, until you understand the power of your mind and your self-image, you'll fail. Now, many people have desires. Many people have dreams and goals. Very few achieve their dreams and goals. And part of the reason for that is they don't understand how the mind works, and they don't understand the power of their self-image. I went into the gym a few days back, and I walked into one of the studios, a big studio, and I was going to use a part of the studio, and someone was using it, and it was a lady, and I asked if I could use a portion of the studio, and she said yes. So I went to the other side, and I did my stretching, and at the end, as I was leaving, I said thank you, but I noticed that she was putting a bandage on her leg. So I said, I wish you a quick recovery. And she said, thank you. But she smiled and she said, this is just me. I'm very clumsy. I do this to myself every time. I'm sure I'm going to sprain my leg again. And as I was about to walk out, as I looked at her, I wish I could just say, I could have said to her, you don't use such words towards yourself. But I didn't know her, so it wasn't my place to try and correct her. But here is the point. The words we speak every day whether spoken or thought, goes into the future. Your words and your thoughts don't go into your past. You know, science teaches us that nothing is either created or destroyed. So the concept that your past is gone is almost a misnomer. Your past still exists. And every word you speak, every thought you have, goes to the future. The writer says that my word will not return to me void. In other words, it will achieve the purpose for which and the desire for which I've sent it. Now, some of us have desires, positive desires for what we want. But subconsciously, we don't understand that every day we're self-sabotaging our positive desires by the thoughts we have and by the spoken words. You see, she was prophesying to herself. Now, forgive me for using that word. Prophecy. It means we're speaking the future. If you're going to understand wealth, you've got to understand the power of the mind, but more importantly, you have to understand how your self-image works. And so, as we begin today's session, talking about your self-image and your self-image in relation to wealth, let's begin by saying this. If you look at your life today, if you look at your financial position, if you look at your health, if you look at all areas of your life, happiness, joy, you know, whether you're working in a good company, whether you're living the life of your dreams, all of the results you have in all areas of your life is a product of your self-image. I think that's so powerful, I have to say that again. Look at the results you have in all areas of your life. The results you have is a product of your self-image. Not your actions, your self-image. Your self-image is like a governor. It controls, it sets the boundary of your life. Now let me give you a good example. As I was thinking about how best to share this with you, and I have in my hand here a rubber band. And this rubber band has a level of elasticity. It's designed to be in that extent that much. I can extend it, I can pull it taut, I can stretch. Now what most people tend to do is they apply willpower, they apply hard work, they put in their best, they put in the best efforts they have, they apply focus. The problem is, when you apply hard work and focus and persistence, it's like pulling a piece of band. At some point, you're going to have to let go. Meaning, at some point, the results you've created artificially as a result of working extra hard, you're going to return back to where you've always been. You see, this limitation here is your self-image. It sets the boundary. So you cannot outperform your self-image. You could do it temporarily, but you cannot create permanent change trying to outperform your self-image. What you have to do if you want to change your results is change the limitation. You cannot do it temporarily by trying to expand or extend. It's part of the reason why most people don't achieve their results or their goals. Most people say, I want to lose weight, for example. I want to put on muscles, for example. And no matter how hard they try, they go on a diet, they change their workout routine, they get personal trainers. And for a number of weeks, for a number of months, they build more muscles. They might lose weight if that's their goal or dream. And after a number of months, maybe a month and a half, what tends to happen is they go back to where they were always. Why? Because the limitation on their self-image. You see, in their mind, they still had a picture of themselves. Now, in the far part of Africa, depending on where you live or where you've been to, there are parts of Africa where you have baby elephants that are captured and tamed. At a very young age, a baby elephant is taken and is somewhat domesticated. Part of the domestication process means they want to use it for maybe commercial reasons. As part of the training, they put a chain on the baby elephant's body. They put the chain and tie it very firmly to a stake, and they drive that stake into the ground to keep the baby elephant fixed in one location. The baby elephant will try to get away. It will try a few times, and no matter how hard it tries, it's not strong enough. It hasn't developed its power enough to break free. Now the baby elephant tries that a number of times and comes to a conclusion that it doesn't have the power. In other words, it concludes that the chain and the stake controls it. In other words, limits it. And guess what? Whatever limits you defines you. And until you break through that logic or break through that limitation, your life is always going to be confined by the boundaries upon which that limit is set. Now, this baby elephant grows to be a really impressive, beautiful, strong elephant. An elephant that can pull down an entire building. But even when the elephant is as powerful as it can ever be, so powerful that as it runs through the jungle, all the animals give way. That elephant at a much older age will never pull out that stake. You put the chain around the elephant and pin it to the ground, it remains in that position. It's so tragic and so sad. The elephant will stay there and die of hunger, even when it's hungry. Because in its mind, although it doesn't have one, but it believes that it's conditioned and that there's nothing it can do. Now, I know I'm talking about an elephant. My first question to you is, what limits you? What has set the boundary of your performance financially, health-wise, in terms of spirituality, happiness, joy, relationally? What has set the boundary? I say to you that that boundary is called your self-image. And if you want to create wealth, if you want to experience wealth at the mental level, complete wealth, you have to change that image. We all come into the world, in my opinion, this is subjective, obviously I could be wrong. No one has all the answers. I don't claim to be any different. I don't claim to be the exception. But this is my opinion. I believe that all of us, we come into the world as a blank canvas. A blank canvas. However, I also believe that each and every one of us is suffering at the point of when we come into the world. We're suffering from amnesia. We don't know who we are. I believe that we are created and we're the universe's highest creation. Intelligence is highest creation. Supreme being, God, whatever you want to call it. We have the mind of the Creator, meaning that we are like it, him, her, whatever you want to choose. Meaning that we are like kings, but we don't know. So we come into the world empty. And throughout our journey through life, one of the things we have to do is renew our mind and remember who we are. And throughout your journey through life, you will have opportunities that will be presented to you for you to remember who you are. And I guess this is why the writer says, Paul says, be ye not conformed to the world, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. Go back and remember who you are. Now we come in empty, so let me start by saying this. Part of the reason I'm talking about some of these very basic fundamental things is until you get this right, it doesn't matter how much money you create, you lose it. Like the rubber band, you can put in as much work as you want. Eventually, you're going to come back to your limitations and your limits. We come in empty. From a young age, we're influenced by about 8 different factors, and that's what I want to talk about. I want to share that with you so you can see how your life today is formed and has been formed by a lot of external factors, and how you must change those external factors before you can change your life. A lot of people are focusing on symptoms. I think it was part 7. I provided a series of very detailed pathways to getting out of debt if you find yourself in debt. I gave a 4-step strategy to eliminating debt completely, permanently from your life. And that included your mortgage, and how you can do it, irrespective of how much you owe, how you can do that in less than 7 years. One of the things I mentioned was this, that getting out of debt or being in debt or not being financially free, not being wealthy, it's a sign, it's a symptom, it's not the problem. Most people say, I have a debt problem. Debt is not the problem. Lack of money is not the problem. It's a symptom that there is a problem. You have to deal with the problem. And I gave 3 simple, what I consider to be the real problem. I said, number 1 is a wisdom problem. If you find yourself in debt, if you're not financially free, it's an indication that you have a wisdom problem. There is a lack of understanding about money, about wealth, about the rules of the game of money. Number 2, you have habits and conditions, or conditioning rather, that is controlling how you live. Now, intellectually, a lot of you understand what I'm saying. And the reason is simply because you're intelligent. But also, we have so much information around the world today. But your conscious mind is what deals with information. What controls your life is your subconscious mind. Your habits and your conditioning is located in your subconscious mind, not your conscious mind. So number 2 was an indication that you had habits that were controlling your life. And number 3, self-image. And today I'm going to talk about those 3 areas. But coming back to the blank canvas that I was mentioning, when we come in, when we're born, we're all born empty. If you gave a blank canvas to Michelangelo or Picasso and you asked either of them to paint a masterpiece, I can guarantee that what you would get back in return will be so beautiful that you might be tempted to even sell it. And why would it be so beautiful? And the reason is very simple, because they will be using experience, they'll be using intelligence, they'll be using wisdom, they'll be using all those skills and talents acquired over a lifetime to produce something that would last generations. The problem we have is that we're influenced by 8 factors. Number 1, your environment. Number 2, the events in your life and the events that occur as you grow old. Number 3, your relationships. Number 4, your goals and dreams, as if you have any. Number 5, your self-portrait. Number 6, your decisions, the decisions and the choices that you get to make as you start to make your decisions for yourself. Number 7, your habits. All of these affect and control your life. The challenge is that when you grow, as you grow up, at a young age, you can't make decisions and make choices because you haven't developed part of your mental faculty, your higher faculty, which is reason. You can't think for yourself. In addition to that, what happens really is your environment, you don't get to choose. You inherit it. The events that occur in your life, especially at the young age, you don't get to choose them because you haven't developed the ability to choose. The relationships you have, you don't get to choose. You inherit your family. You might choose your friends as you grow old. The goals and the dreams most people have, At the young age, you might see a young child that says, I want to be a doctor. And the mother says, no, you wouldn't be a doctor. You need to be a football player. So a lot of us have chosen professions and have dreams and goals that were given to us. And we live into that future based on someone else's ideal about who we should be. Therefore, the self-portrait we have about ourselves and the habits we form are based on other people's opinions about us. So your self-image, in most cases, you've inherited. You haven't chosen your self-image, you've inherited it. Your beliefs, which should have been number 8 here, your beliefs and your philosophies, you've inherited. You didn't choose your beliefs. You were born into a family, into an environment with a particular way of thinking and what they believed in. So you see, your self-image is given to you at a young age. Now the problem is, most of us take what has been given to us. And I'm not suggesting it's good or bad. All I'm simply saying is that people can only give you what they have. 97% of the population combined earn and make and are worth less than 3% of the population. So 3% of the population earn more and are worth more than the 97% combined. Now that is an imbalanced equation. Why is it imbalanced? Because there's a lack of wisdom. We don't know who we are. So the wealthy and the rich and the educated and the successful will pass on what they know to their children, and the poor will pass on what they know to their children. And so we have the saying that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And it's all down to wisdom. Now the problem with this is, unfortunately, many of us have never stopped and asked the question, is what I'm receiving what I need? Is it what I want? And you can't answer that question at the young age. However, you and I will get to a point in our lives where we have to make the decisions for ourselves. When we've developed our ability to think, to choose, to decide. But what's sad is, for many people, even when we get to that stage, unfortunately, what we do, which I think is tragic, is we keep that same image and we build our lives on that image. Now in engineering design, back in the day when I was still involved in construction, any contractor, any engineer, an architect will tell you that the most important part of the building is the foundation. Now the foundation is the part of the building you never get to see, but it's the most important part of the building. And in designing the foundation, you had to design preliminarily the entire building. You had to work out what would be in the building. If you were designing a 60 tower building, story building, 60 floor building, you had to estimate what the building would be used for, the number of people that would be in the building, the activities in the building, the furniture in the building. Now, you're doing all of this before you've started construction, even before you've started designing the building itself. But you have to do a preliminary design, and based on all the total load, that information is then used to design the foundation. The reason being that the foundation supports the entire structure. Without a strong foundation, you have a building that cannot be inhabited. As a matter of fact, if a building inspector arrived and walked into one of the floors of the building and observed a crack on the wall, they would issue a defects inspection report with instructions to remedy the defect. But if they found a defect, a major defect in the foundation, they would render the entire building inhabitable. No one would be allowed to go in. Now here is the point I'm making. A lot of us do not understand that this foundation in our personal lives is called your self-image. And we've inherited this self-image. Unfortunately, it's shaky. There are major cracks in the foundation. So a lot of people say, for example, I've always been clumsy, or I've never been good in maths, or I'm not good in science. My father said I'm not good with maths. We've got all these limitations that have been placed on ourselves. I'm never going to be wealthy because limitations put on us. Words, spoken words, pictures. And so the self-portrait we have has been painted by someone else. So if you want to create wealth, the first thing you have to do is go back to that image. Otherwise, you're building on shaky ground. The writer talks about two men. One built his house on the sand, one built his house on the rock. The account of the story says that when the winds came and the tides, the house built on the sand, because it was built on weak foundation, collapsed. And that which was built on the rocky ground withstood all that external pressure. In the same way, you can only create wealth, multiply wealth, protect the wealth you have created, and pass on the wealth to your future generation or to the people you want if you have strong foundation. That foundation begins with you. It begins in your mind. So the first thing we want to do if we want to change and create a wealthy state of mind is go and change your self-image. Now, you do not try to alter your old image. If you want to get rid of an old habit, you don't try to fix the old habit. What you must do is create a new habit. The new habit then displaces the old habit. You render the old habit obsolete by bringing in a new habit. Think about this. There's so many parts of what we do every day. We know of, for example, Blockbusters used to be, the subscription you always needed to have if you wanted to, have films, the latest films. And then we had Netflix. We used to have, Kodak. Now it's all moved on. We used to have the Motorola phones, and then we have the iPhones. You don't try to change an old way of living by trying to fix what's wrong. You can do that if you want. It just takes you much longer. You simply have to create something new. And what you create that is new displaces what's old, simply through the process of substitution. How do you get light to come into a space if it's pitch dark? Simply you click the light switch. The light displaces the darkness. And so what we have to do is create a new self-image for you. Now, I know it sounds a little bit too much for some, but it's important. Otherwise, what we end up doing, I did this for so long, is you end up doing what I call self-sabotage. Self-sabotage, where you start to make changes, but you go back to your old ways. And part of the reason for this self-sabotage is simple. I'll stick with the building analogy to make it understandable. If you've been to Las Vegas, Nevada, then obviously you would agree that the environmental conditions is very different to if you've been to Singapore. In Las Vegas, you have dry heat, dry air, the humidity very low. In Singapore, the humidity generally very high. Now, in designing a building in both cities, you have to design what's called an intelligent building. An intelligent building is one whereby it can manage the temperature conditions, it can manage the humidity levels, it can manage all the other internal conditions, the lights, it can manage other areas of the business in terms of communication between systems. We call that back in the day a building management system. It was an intelligent system. Now you have a building management system. It's an intelligent system called your self-image. In Singapore, in order to ensure that the internal temperature of an office, for example, is conducive for people to work and live, you have to alter the humidity coming in, bring it down to a level that is acceptable. In addition to that, if the temperature was hot or cold, you had to alter, increase or decrease the temperature to bring it to a level that was comfortable so that people could be in a relatively comfortable space. Now, if you walked out of the door, for example, and left the door open, or someone left the windows open, what happens is that the intelligence system identifies that there's been an external condition that is affecting the internal set point state. So for example, you may have had the temperature in the space at 21 degrees and the humidity at maybe 45 degrees or 50 degrees. The intelligence system detects that the humidity in that space where you have the windows open has gone up to 70 or has dropped down, depending on the region, down to 30, and it sends a signal. It sends a signal to the systems that serve the building, and slowly it brings back the humidity to the right level. It brings back the temperature, if necessary, to the right level. That's the same way our subconscious mind works, our self-image works. So, to give you a good example, let's assume that you have a desire, a goal, that you want to lose 100, maybe 100 is too much. Maybe let's say you want to lose 40 kg. You go on a diet, you go on a fitness program, you get a personal trainer, and every day you commit to working out. But before that, like I started by saying, this is your limits. So you start stretching and doing external activities and putting all the hard work to achieve your goals and dreams. Now, if you did this for a week, a month and say 5 days, eventually what tends to happen when you start, you will see changes. Month, you see changes. Unfortunately, when you start getting to the maybe 40 days and 50 days into your routine, what you find is that for some reason, although you've lost maybe 25 kg, you find that you start putting it back on for some strange reason. And the reason you put it back on is because you haven't changed the limitation. You have a picture in your mind of who you are. That picture might be someone who is skinny, who can't put on muscles, but also it could be a picture of someone who is oversized, who can't get lean. Until you use your imagination to set a goal, you will not succeed. I'll say that again. Most people do not achieve their goals and dreams because they don't use their imagination. Imagination is you creating a picture of who you want to be, holding that picture and letting that picture become reality through your actions. So if you set a goal to put on weight or to lose weight without changing the picture you have about yourself, what you find is that you will not succeed. In the 1960s, there was a very remarkable doctor. His name was called Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon, a remarkable plastic surgeon. And he was a specialist as well, one of the best. And he found that part of his experience with people and patients who had a medical dream of perhaps they had a scar, a physical scar, maybe on their faces, and they wanted that changed. One of the things he found was, even after he had operated on this patient, and he had done an exceptional job, and it looked great, he found that for many of them, even when they stood in front of the mirror and they could see the change physically, they were still unhappy. Some of them were still depressed. He couldn't understand this. So he started to study human psychology. But he also found that there were some people who had a physical scar, and as soon as they repaired the scar, they became excited, they became passionate about life because they had a new look. Now, his study led him down to change careers, because what he found was so remarkable. He discovered that we all have a self-image, and for a lot of us, we have two images. Now, I want you to picture this. Imagine yourself standing in front of a mirror. It's a full width and a full height mirror, and you're standing naked. What do you see? Obviously, you see a reflection of you. Now, if I asked you, what do you see? You might say, that's my image. However, what you see is your external image. There is another image on the inside. Now, the image on the inside is what controls your life. Now, Dr. Maxwell Maltz realized that until you change the scars that people had inside and based on the picture they had, that you cannot create permanent change. So he left his profession as a plastic surgeon, where he would work on people and trying to fix the external, and he started focusing on how he could help people deal with and create a new image. And he published the book. His study has changed psychology, human understanding, because now we recognize that we all have an image, and that image sets the performance of our lives. Now, you and I must change our self-image before we can create wealth. This means that we must have an image of a wealth-conscious mind. Some people can tell you exactly what they want in terms of material wealth or physical health, but they cannot create and hold on to that image of perfection. As a matter of fact, and I want you to try this, if you can create a picture of yourself in great health, perfect health condition, you will never be ill. Now, I know that's difficult to believe. You will never be ill. I started day one by explaining that there were three parts to yourself. I said that each of us comes in threes. Some people call it a trinity. What you see as you watch me, you might say, this is Mensah. This is my body. This is not me. I'm a spirit. I'm on a journey through life. I was born to experience this journey. A time will come when I'll be no more. I'm a spirit. To experience life, I have to live in a body, physical body, but I've been given a mind. My physical body has limitations. My spirit is perfect. It has no limitations. But the only way I can express and interact and understand and allow my spirit to give me the experience that I should have in life, I must use my mind. So your mind is literally the gateway, the bridge between spirit and physical. So wealth at the spiritual level is you understanding that you are wealth. Wealth is not something external to you, that you're perfect and you're wealth. You have to express it. The way you express it begins in your mind, by thinking, by creating pictures, and allowing those pictures to control the results and actions you take on the physical. So, if you want to create wealth, first of all, you have to create the mindset of wealth. Change the picture you have. Now, for people like I had this challenge for a long time, being born poor, raised poor, spiritually wealthy, materially poor, it was difficult for me. Why? Because the picture I had in my mind was scarred. I couldn't see myself wealthy. Because for me, I had to go back and make reference to the 8 component parts that made my self-image. My experiences demonstrated that I was poor, and I had always been poor. The events in my life demonstrated that I'd always been in lack. My relationships and the people I had around me had controlled and had decided my beliefs. The beliefs I had and the philosophies I had about myself and life were flawed. They were not based entirely on wisdom in relation to wealth at some level. But in addition to that, my goals and dreams and who I wanted to be was based and influenced by my upbringing, sadly. Therefore, my self-image was distorted. And so what I had to do was go back and construct this foundation and reconstruct another foundation. Now, in every area of your life, you have an image. In terms of financial prosperity, there is an image. Relationships, there's an image. Spirituality, there's an image. Business and your ability to achieve, there's an image. We all have an image for every area or priority area of our lives. So when it comes to money, some people say, I've never been good with money, or I don't know how it works. I have a financial planner, and so they delegate that responsibility. Or some people say, well, this is how I've always been, I need to spend money. If I don't spend the money, something happens. They self-sabotage themselves. And we do everything we do in life, we do for two reasons: to achieve gain or to avoid a loss. But all of those activities are happening automatically because it's occurring in the mind. You have to change your self-image before you can change your life. If you don't change your self-image, you'll be temporal. A plane flying from London to Las Vegas is off course. It's off course approximately 95 to 99% of the journey. It has a flight path and a flight plan. It's on autopilot, but it has an onboard avionics system. It has experienced pilots that are there in case something goes wrong, but also it's communicating with the control tower, but it's locked in based on the destination. And as the plane flies, what you normally find is you have turbulence. You have the winds, and that wind and the turbulence as it travels would make it deviate from its flight path. The pilot doesn't have to do anything. Reason being, it has an automatic system. It has what I'm calling, in your case, a self-image. The automatic system will bring the plane back to the flight path to make sure it arrives at the destination. So, in your case, like I use the analogy of a building management system, when things start to change in your life, either positively or negatively, your self-image, which is the limits that has been set, will kick in. For example, everything that I've shared from day 1 to day 9, which is about strategies to create wealth, anyone can apply those techniques and strategies and implement them very easily because they're very simple. As you start to make changes, what you'll find is your financial position starts to change. You'll start to go up. However, because you haven't changed this limit, because you haven't raised this standard, what would happen eventually? You will sabotage yourself and come back down. It's a must. On the other hand, even when you start, think about this, even when in your life right now, even when you start performing below what you have been always doing, what you tend to find is in some way, you find a way to get back up. Somehow, you find a way to get back up. This is the limit we have to change. Some people say, simply raise your standards. But it's easy to say raise your standards. The truth is, you can prophesy, you can use motivation, you can write down your goals and dreams, you can walk on hot stone, you can walk on fire, you can sit down and chant incantations, you can sit under a pyramid and recite words, you can sit next to a waterfall and say whatever you have and rub crystal balls, you can do all of that. At the end of the day, what limits you is your self-image. So what I'm going to share with you as I pull this to a close is, how do you change your self-image? And how do you change your self-image in such a way that it helps you achieve wealth and it helps you achieve prosperity in all areas of your life? It's very simple, but it requires work. The first thing we want to start by doing is go back to the comment I made at the start. At the start, I said that we all come in as a blank canvas. So if you're going to change your self-image in any area of life, you have to change the portrait, meaning you have to start with a blank canvas. the results you have in any area of your life, relationally, business, finances, emotional, is based on your self-image. Change your self-image, you're guaranteed to change the results. So you begin with a blank canvas. What do you do? Well, the first thing you simply do is decide what you want. Decide who you want to be. With relation to financial wealth, I say to people, what do you want? And most people tend to say, I want more. You cannot hit a target that you cannot see. The way the brain works, the brain needs specific coordinates. You have to be specific. You see, the universe is infinite in abundance. You can have anything you want. All you have to do is ask. You see, for most people, if you simply had the courage to ask for what you want, you'll be amazed that you can get it. Most people are not definite, and so they don't receive. The universe is infinite. You can ask for whatever you want, but you have to be specific. So you must know exactly what you want. Specifically, what do you want? What are the coordinates? I found that process very difficult and challenging. And over the last number of years, as I look back, I discovered the reason. The reason it was difficult for me to decide what I wanted was because I had to think. Henry Ford said that thinking is the hardest work out there, and that's the reason why most people do not do it. I had to think, and we haven't been taught how to think. Strange. No one is taught at a young age or at school how to think. And so for so many years, I couldn't say what I wanted. All I could say was I want more. I want better health. Well, what does that mean? I want better relationship. What does that mean? I want a happy family. What does that really mean? I want more money. What is more? Do you want £2? Do you want 1,000? Do you want 10 million? Do you want 100 million? What is it you want? But I couldn't think. And the more I was trying to figure out how to think, the more difficult it became. And so here is my recommendation to you. Forget about thinking and simply ask yourself questions. Because questions is thinking. Thinking is simply you using your inductive and deductive reasoning faculties to answer and ask questions. For example, rather than say, decide what you want, you might say, ask yourself the question, how much will I need to maintain the lifestyle that I have today and have enough so I never have to work again? You see, it's more specific. Your mind is a powerful instrument, a gift. It's also a liability if you don't know how to use it. If you ask empowering questions, your mind will find ways to find the answers. If you ask disempowering questions, it will provide likewise. It's like a neutral soil. So just begin by asking yourself questions, simple questions, how would my future be if I was financially free? If I was in my ideal relationship, what would it look like? Who would I be with? If I was working for my ideal company or boss, what would they look like? What would the environment be like? That begins the description process. The first thing you want to do if you want to change your self-image is decide what you want. And this decision process is simply because you're going to be changing the script. The image that was given to you has to go. Meaning you have to write a new script of who you want to be. So what we're doing here is scripting. We're trying to script your new self. And the best way to do this that I found, if you're not relaxed, if you're not calm, if you don't just take it easy, if you don't just go with the flow, if you find it difficult to fantasize, you'll find this process very difficult. It begins with fantasizing. Can you fantasize? Can you create? Can you imagine? I love the reference that some people say, imagine you had a magic wand and you could wish for anything. What would you wish for? Imagine you had Aladdin's lamp and you could rub the lamp and the genie would come out and you could have anything, what would you ask for? Fantasizing is the beginning process for creation and creativity. All greatness begins with fantasizing. Unfortunately, I was raised with the sad notion that daydreaming is wrong and that daydreaming was bad. Ignorance is the cause of all tragedies we've had in the world. You know, ignorance hides greatness. Ignorance is the cause of all the wars we fight today. Ignorance is the reason why we look at one person and say, well, you're black and I'm white, without realizing we're just all the same. It's just the same spirit. We have the same mind, access to the same supreme intelligence, but all because of ignorance. And I was kind of pushed up my environment into thinking that if you daydream, that's wrong. If you fantasize, that's wrong. You have to be realistic. And that's the word that has confined a lot of people. Logic. People say you have to be realistic. And that quest that we have to stay realistic limits us. So write the script. We want to document who you want to be. And I find that one of the easiest ways I was able to do this was to think of people who I admired, people who were living the life that I was hoping to live sometime in the future. And I was able to draw from their stories and use that to build a new script of who I wanted to be and who I would have loved to be. That became my script. The whole purpose of developing a script is because you're going to be living that new script, like an actor will. Danny Day-Lewis is one of my favorite actors, and I love him because of how he performs. I heard once, no, I don't know if this is completely true, but I heard once that his wife said that after every film, that it takes about 3 months before she has her husband back. In other words, Danny Day-Lewis wasn't one of the actors that would try to act. He internalized the script. He believed that he was the character. And it took him a few months to undress that belief and go back to his normal life. But that's powerful. He did a lot of films. He did Lincoln. He did There Will Be Blood. And a lot of other great films. He did a film on Gandhi. And here's the point. You have to decide who you want to become. You have to choose. Get a script of who you want to be. Write it down, because you're going to be living into that script. Now, once you've written that down, the next thing you must do is internalize that script. Memorize that script up to the point where you can convert the words you've written down into pictures. Those pictures should be converted and placed in locations where you can see them. Get a dream wall, get a vision board. On my phone, I tend to have a folder that I call my dream wall, where I have pictures of my future, who I want to be. And so I can flick through the pictures every single day as I'm on the road traveling. I can look at myself, my future. But get a vision board and place these pictures where you can see them to remind you of who you want to be. Now, once you've done that, you must convert those pictures into what I call mental movies. Create a mental movie of your life. Imagine yourself living that future, and every day spend about 5 or 10 minutes. Imagine your house to have a private cinema room, a theater in your house. There is just one seat. There's a massive screen. It's pitch black. You can walk in every day, shut the door, sit down. The screen comes on, and you're watching yourself in your future, living exactly how you want to live. Now, when you do this, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You're emotionally getting involved with that idea, with that picture. Very simple. You're emotionally getting involved with that picture. Just sit there and just observe. You're watching yourself in the future. doing what you want to do, having what you wish to have with those you want to spend time with. So the second stage, we say it's you must create mental movies. Here, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to use your sensory faculties, sight and sound, in terms of you can hear. Because what you see, what you hear controls how you feel. How you feel controls what you do, your actions. If consistently applied, will create habits. Your habits create your results. Now, the third thing you must do is spend between 5 and 10 minutes every day and do what I call mental rehearsal. Mental rehearsal. Now, this is different from mental movies. The difference is, with mental movies, you're observing. With mental rehearsal, you're participating. So now, see yourself living and doing and interacting. Imagine, for example, in that future, someone said to you, well, you look good, you look in great shape. And you say, I've never felt this good before. I'm financially free now, and I have time to train more, spend time with family. But rather than observe, in this part, you're going to be doing the activity. Get the feeling of doing it. What would it feel like? What are you wearing? What would you do in the morning? What would you have for breakfast? What would you have for supper? Rehearsal. Number 4. When you decided what you want and you scripted it, that became a goal. You must now have this goal reviewed. So every day, first thing in the morning, sit down. It shouldn't take more than a minute. And just recite, review, rewrite your goals. You might say, I'm financially happy. Rewrite your goals. In the evening before you go to bed, rewrite your goals. During the day, if you feel depressed, if you feel down, if you feel distracted, rewrite your goals. The reason is because it gives you focus. When you're rewriting and redesigning your self-image, what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to use your mind. You're trying to see by vision rather than sight. Now, you might be financially challenged. You also could be in a difficult position whereby you have maybe health conditions that do not particularly agree with this image you have of yourself. But you have to change that. First of all, you must allow yourself to see by faith, by vision, and not by sight. So every day you want to keep your focus on your desire. What do you want? Now, the next thing you must do, once you've reviewed your goals every day, it takes a minute, 2 minutes. Rewrite, review, recite your goals. The next thing you must do is then take action. Now, this action comes in 2 parts. There is action in relation to making the goal a reality. In other words, you've decided who you want to be. You have a script. Now it's time for you to start acting like the person you want to be. Meaning you're taking progressive steps towards becoming your best self. And that's the first part. The second part of the entire process is simple. When you take action, what you might find is you fall short. Now, I have a mentor. One of my mentors has something that I admire. In his lounge and living room, he has pictures of his mentors, people who he looks up to. And whenever he goes through a difficult time, making a strategic business decision, he would ask himself a question. What would these people do? He also has a picture of himself in that circle of influence. In that dream or vision board he has, he's got a picture of himself. So he sees himself associating with these great men and women who made a difference in the world. And he would ask himself, what would they do if they were in my position? And that guides him to making the right choices. So, when you take action, you'll find that you might fall short of the goal you want to achieve. So, you need to allow for what we call corrective action. Corrective action. Now, this is goal-directed action. The second is corrective action. You have to course correct. Now, a plane is off course 99% of the time. However, it continues to course correct. You have to keep course correcting, and you do that every single day. Now, once you've done number 5, decided what you want, you have the movies going and you're rehearsing in your mind, you have your goal set, you're taking action. Number 6, you must have time and take time to provide what we call affirmations. Affirmations are important. The key to affirmations is this: we all talk to ourselves. Everyone talks to him or herself. Some are spoken words, some are internalized words, or we talk to ourselves. To assume that you don't talk to yourself is as silly as saying you don't eat. We all talk to ourselves. Silently we talk to ourselves. Now, what you must do is make sure that your affirmations are supportive of your goals. Empowering words. I usually say you are your best coach and cheerleader. So praise yourself. Make a list of 10, 15, 20, as many as you want, affirmations that you can repeat every day to keep you thinking. Now, this is what the great author said: whatever is good, whatever is just, whatever is noble, whatever is kind, think on those things. So create affirmations that give you a running track, a track for your mind to run on, so that whenever you go through a setback, you can say something that brings you back in focus. You can say something that brings your attention, brings your energy, brings your vision back, so that you can look and you can see the future you're trying to get to. Now, with affirmations, you have to realize that there is what we call internal silent self-talk and verbalized self-talk. Two different ways of having affirmations or self-talking. The most important part of what I want to share is this: your thoughts, your words are powerful. We have two gifts that we have that keeps us unique, makes us different from any other life form. The first is we have a mind. We have an imagination, meaning we can create anything we want. The second is we have the power of speech, words. We can speak things into existence. Now, a thought is the same as a word. The only difference is one is still inside you, the other is out of you. Now, when you release your thoughts and you clothe it in verbal language, we call that words. So you must control what you're saying. Many people are sabotaging themselves without realizing that they're doing the opposite to what they want. So I did this for so many years. I had desires to create wealth, good health, prosperity, do well in a job. And every day I labored, I worked hard, I gave my best. But in my thinking, I didn't believe I was going to achieve it. So it was like two people fighting each other, but they are the same people. So everything I created physically, I got rid of mentally. And unfortunately, I was self-sabotaging every single day. Now, affirmations help you avoid self-sabotage. Self-talk helps you avoid self-sabotage. Now, once you've done this, you've positioned yourself for the final part, which is expectation. And this is where gratitude comes in, meaning you must start to believe and expect that change. You must start to give thanks, be happy, because gratitude draws you closer to the source of everything in life. The more grateful you are, as a matter of fact, if you show gratitude for what you want, although you haven't received it, it comes to you quicker than you would have imagined. It's just the law of life. Now, all of these 7 steps are important in changing your self-image. This requires work. It's not something you do once. If you were to just take into account that it's taking you perhaps, let's assume you're 20 years old, and for 20 years every single day you've lived based on a self-image, you can't expect by doing this once or twice per week it's going to change your image. No, you must apply consistency. And part of that consistency requires you do it every day for 100 days without fail. 5 minutes for mental movies, 5 minutes for mental rehearsal, maybe 2 or 3 minutes for your golden review. You're taking action, as you go through the day. Affirmations might take 2 or 3 minutes in the morning, maybe you can do in the evening, but all of these can be done in half an hour with the exception of the action steps. Every day consistently for 100 days without letting one exception occur. I'll say that again. Every day for 100 days without allowing one exception occur. You must be consistent, see, because repetition and spaced repetition is the key to change. That's how we change our lives. So if you're going to change your self-image, you do it this way. Now what you find is that when you start to create some of the changes you want to experience, you start to observe that your results start to change. As a matter of fact, imagination is more powerful than will. I talked about your 6 higher faculties yesterday. One of them was imagination, one of them was will. Some people say willpower. You can apply as much hard work and will and focus and persistence until you change the image first. You'll find eventually you'll go back to what you've always done. So let's start creating wealth in our respective lives by, first of all, changing our mind. In your subconscious mind, like I mentioned earlier on, you have habits, conditioning, and self-image. Amongst the 3 of them, your self-image is the most powerful. You can change your habits, you can alter your conditioning, but if you don't change your self-image, you always want to be consistent with the identity you have about yourself. So let's start this journey by changing our image, reconstruct the foundation, and then once we've reconstructed the foundation, we can start building beautiful structures for our lives in all areas and all categories of our lives. Now I hope that's been useful. That's where we're going to stop today. Yesterday we talked about the mind. Today we've talked about self-image and how self-image helps you become who you want to be. Remember this, especially for those of you perhaps who don't really agree with what I've shared today for whatever reason. Ask yourself a simple question. Are you really living the life you want? Are you really living the results in your life? Is that really what you want? Now, if the answer is no in any area, financially, relationally, emotionally, mentally, if the answer is no, then why don't you give this a try? For so many years I held on to beliefs that did not support the results that I wanted. And I came to a conclusion that all of us have beliefs, and we hold on to our beliefs because our beliefs are connected to our identity, who we think we are. And to change our beliefs makes us feel that we're betraying who we really are. We have a feeling that we have to be consistent with who we really think we are. But there's really nothing wrong with that. But if your beliefs are not creating the results you want, why don't you just make room for new beliefs? I'm not saying get rid of your beliefs completely. Maybe you have to, I don't know. But if your beliefs have not created the results you want, why hold on to the beliefs when you can see that they're not creating the results you want? Just be open to other ideas. If you come into the world of professional, and you speak to professional athletes, if you go into the world of sports or business, what you find is that those who achieve a level of exceptionalism and a level of excellence were those who first of all created the idea first in their mind before they achieved it physically. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger's journey and his life. A young boy from Austria, raised poor, had a vision of who he wanted to be. Fell in love with bodybuilding and the image. And he started by creating an image of himself. That image in himself, about his new self, became so potent. he created mental movies, and he would see himself on stage. Now this is back in Austria. He would see himself on stage posing, receiving the medals as the Mr. Olympian. He had this mental rehearsals every single day, constantly, mental movies every day. And eventually, he packed up his bag and he traveled all the way to the United States. He had no friends, he had no family, he knew no one. Upon arrival, he began to take goal-directed actions. And he would go to the gym and he would work out, and he would go to work after training in the gym, and he would work to earn a living, but he would come back. And every day he kept course correcting and course correcting and course correcting. And when people saw him in the gym, they thought he was dreaming. They said, "You're a dreamer, it's never going to happen." And he continued. Eventually he became, I think, a 7-time or 8-time Mr. Olympian, breaking all records. How? He changed his script. He changed his self-image. He let go of who he used to be to become who he wanted to be. He achieved the level of excellence in bodybuilding, and then he decided again, I want to become a movie star. He had a very thick Austrian accent. Most people said, not a chance. He had a massive build with so much muscles. Everyone said, you don't even stand a chance, just go home. He went back again. He changed the script. He created new movies in his mind. He mentally rehearsed. He set a goal for himself that he would become the #1 box office star in all of Hollywood. He tried. He failed. He went back again. Someone asked him, how are you going to achieve this? He said, just the same way I achieved it in bodybuilding. I'm going to create a picture of who I want to be. And then I'm going to live into that picture as though the picture were already real. In other words, I'm going to create an image, a picture, a motion picture of who I want to be. I'm going to change my self-image and I'm going to become that person. A number of years afterwards, he was the #1 box office star in Hollywood. Then he decided again, I want to become the governor of California. Everyone said, this is a joke. You have too much muscles. You're not really good as an actor. You have an Austrian citizenship. You have an Austrian accent. No one is going to vote you in. He changed the script. He created mental movies. He rehearsed the movies. He had a goal. He took action. Goal-directed actions. Then he corrected his actions. And finally, he became the governor of California. You see, all things are possible if you believe. If you want to create wealth, you have to start in your mind. Ask yourself the question, what do I want? Write it down. Write a script of who you want to be. And guess what? When you write your script, you don't write your script by sight. Now, I found most people, like I did for so long, most people set their script and their vision based on what they think they can do. I don't think I've met, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 people, I don't believe I've met more than 2 people who are living the life they want to live. And I'm talking about people that I know people who are, in terms of, but we're not really close friends. But I don't know that many close friends or acquaintances who are really living the life they want. Most people are living the life they believe they can get. Very few people have the boldness and the courage to simply ask of life what they want, and from life what they want. And for that reason, we have people who live 1 year and they repeat it 90 times. And at the end of their life, they look back and they say, I wish I had lived a different life. Well, you can. You can start today. You're not a tree. There is no capricious God in the sky holding you on strings and controlling your actions. That doesn't exist. You have the power of choice. You have free will. You can choose. You see, the next 5 years of your life doesn't have to be like the last 5. Your past and your present does not have to be used as ingredients for your future. You and I have paid a price for the past. We paid in full. We don't have to pay again. So we can choose to create the future, bring that future into the present, and live today as though that future were here. And what you'll find is that that future becomes reality just simply by deciding to act like the person you want to be. So, as I summarize, I would say this to you: if you really want to create wealth, you must change your self-image, because until you change your self-image, you can't change your results. I want to thank you for your time. We're going to pick up again tomorrow, and I'll try and conclude this second level either tomorrow or the day after. But it's a short session, it's a short series. The second level of wealth is a short series. It's not as long as the first section, which went for 9 different parts. We're going to limit this to maybe about 4, at the most 5. So thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. I want to wish you the best. God bless.